download. Okay, we're live. Hey everyone, it's Bron here, and I'm here with the amazing Alan Stevens on the Business Owners Collective Facebook Live series. Now, for those who don't know, the Business Owners Collective is a magazine that my sister and I, Tennille, we've collated. It's values driven. It's all about information and education. There's no pitching, there's no selling. It's just straight value. And we are so blessed to have Alan as one of our writers. So, Alan, you and I have, we've known each other, I don't know, about a year now, which is really cool. But, and you've written an article about how, give me the exact title again, how business relationships fail.
That's right. I've forgotten the exact title from doing this stuff all the time, and somebody goes, "What was the title of that one?" They go,
"I don't know." Anyway, what really caught me in this article. So let's just go. We'll take it a step back, and if you could just let everyone know a little bit about you and what you're doing, and then also where that article came from. But there was one thing you wrote in that article that I want to ask you about. So if you can just share a little bit about you first, and then I'm going to ask my question.
Rightio. Well, I live here in Newcastle, originally from Sydney. Came from Sydney in 1975 for 5 months and have stayed here ever since. Either that, I love the place, or I can't tell time. I haven't worked out which yet. But it was just the lifestyle. I really loved it. And I've worked in a lot of different industries, and over that time, one of the biggest things is that I've always been dealing with people, and my biggest challenge has always been around working out what made people tick, because I was very bad at picking good friends and business partners and relationships. Got it. If anyone was going to get it wrong, it was me. And so I needed to learn how to read people, understand them more effectively, and that's virtually been my life mission since about 1975. First of all, being put in charge of three men who are all older than me. My second in charge was 38, and I was 23. So that was my first introduction to it. And that's where it all started for me into understanding about people. But about 10, 12 years ago, I was helping a friend with a spiritual retreat, and we're doing some psychometric profiling workshops. And somebody just asked me, "You ever looked at reading faces?" And I went, "Sounds cool." And I've always been of the principle that the most important thing you'll ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know everything.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to turn my heater off because I can hear it, which means that you guys probably can hear it. Hold on.
Okay.
Of course. Little something I needed to do there for a second. Yes. So now with that, of course, is that you read faces. That's what you do. And I have been on many a Zoom with you, and we're all sitting there, and Alan says, "Oh, I'm a facial profiler," or the correct language that you use, and we all go, "No, don't do that." But I would love to know. I've got a question here. Now, I've put these questions in because these are the questions that I've been given to ask you. The first one is, what is face profiling? Tell us a little bit about where that came from.
Well, first of all, let's look at why we profile people. The first thing is it's about making a better connection with somebody. It's not about manipulating. It's about being able to understand somebody, how they like to be treated, how they like to be spoken to, so that we can treat them in the way that they want to be treated. The old saying of treat others as you would have them treat you is better than what most people do, but it's still way off the mark. The right thing is treat others as they would have you treat them. So the more I can read somebody, the more I can build that relationship. But where the face profiling came into it, we know that the saying has always been that the eyes are the windows to the soul. But the facial features are really the windows to your mind. They are the roadmap of how you like to think and process. So very quickly, if you lift weights, you're going to build muscles. We also know that you can tell if somebody's sad by the expression on their face. If they're happy, the same thing. Both the facial expressions and body language give away the emotions. So every time that we think in a certain way, we're going to be pulling expressions on our face. And that's working those muscles. So repetitive movement of the facial muscles gives us ridges and crevices, that will also over time will actually position our eyes to either wider or narrower depending on how we focus. And so
Seriously?
your facial features are going to give away
Wow.
how you like to think and process. There's your personality. So that's
Wow.
the
That's
first part of
cool.
it. And once
Yep.
I've got that, I know how to talk to you. And then I've got the feedback of your body language and those little twitches on the face, these little, what they call microexpressions. When
Yep.
something happens to you, around you, unconsciously we react. The face gives away an expression. Our body moves in certain ways. And then our conscious mind steps in and switches it off. And that duration could be as fast as a fifth of a second down to 1/25th of a second.
Yep.
But we were able to read that because our eyes will pick it up and our brain is fast enough to activate it and realize what we're seeing in someone's face. So those micro expressions give away what you're feeling in the moment. It tells me whether I've read you right, whether there's emotional issues going on, or to the worst extreme, if you're telling me lies.
Interesting. I just find it really fascinating because before we went live, you said to me that there was some technology. So obviously, face to face, obviously like this, you can read me like I'm gathering. You would have read me a year ago. Because
I got you worked out.
good, because I am so done. But you said that you were sent a photo and you were able to do exactly the same thing from a photo.
That's it. Well, I'll give you an example. Today, I've just done a podcast for another group earlier this morning, and they sent me through 3 photographs. One of the guys, I'd actually interviewed him on my campfire project a little while ago, but he had his 2 business partners there. Now, all I've got is a photograph. We're doing the podcast, and he said, well, tell us the differences in our personalities. And as I went through it, one of his business partners was sitting there, and he said he's nodding his head all the way through. So you were able to pick it up from a photograph. This is what I like about it. If you use, psychometric profiling, Myers-Briggs, DISC, Enneagrams, all those things where you have to ask questions, you're waiting for the person to give a response. But with the face, it doesn't change. The facial features don't change overnight. They gradually change in response to your environment. So your photograph will give away your personality to that point. So your websites, your LinkedIn profiles, this is why you really need to focus and make sure that you've got the right photographs in there, not the glamour shots, because people have already read you anyway. We do this unconsciously. People have already decided whether they like you or not in less than 300 milliseconds on LinkedIn. They'll look at your face and in that moment decide whether they like you or not. Then they'll read what you've written about yourself, and they'll unconsciously do a connection between the face and what you've written to whether you are that person.
Interesting. And you've mentioned this to me before, which we're digressing from the article, but I think that's fantastic because it actually all ties in together. I know that you've said before, I'm happy to do a LinkedIn audit, so to speak. And the thing is, guys, what Alan's talking about is making sure exactly that, which is the profile is going to match what you're writing. And to me, in my world, in the marketing space, that is just so valuable because the way you show up really needs to be as you, not as the perfectly coiffed.
That's it.
Person.
Because a person's going to walk in the door and see you in real life, and they're going to be disappointed if you don't match. There's going to be distrust and other things that come in. So in business, we are there to provide a service, to sell a product or whatever. We're not there for a glamour shot.
Absolutely.
You've got to focus on what you're there for. And the LinkedIn profiles are about that. Okay, your Facebook pages, other places like that, fine. But if it's going to be your LinkedIn profile, that is purely business.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree more. Now, this is the question I've got for you. You made the comment, which is that the title was something along the lines of, we'll put links in, guys, for you to get a copy of the magazine. You can read Alan's article. But just so everyone is clear, there is no advertising, there's no pitching, and from any of us. It's not about that. It's providing valuable information. But you made a comment about it was around why business relationships fail, but then the next, after the first paragraph, you said you don't believe in business relationships or something like that. What does that mean?
There is no such thing as a business relationship, purely and simply because businesses do not talk to each other. It's the people in the business. So it's a human speaking to a human. I don't care if you're business to business or business to customer. You are human to human when you're selling your services or whatever. And so it's a personal relationship. And the reason I make that distinction is that a lot of business people are focusing on their business relationship with their customer. And they forget that the same techniques they use there are the ones they use with their spouse, with their children. So if you realize that everything is a personal relationship and you focus on that, not only will you make more money in the business, but your personal relationships will be improved. The relationship with your children will be a better connection. That'll be improved. So it's focus, because when I teach people how to read somebody, they go, oh, where can I use us? I go, everywhere. They go, how many times people have said, oh, I came to you because I wanted to improve my sales, or I wanted to improve my negotiations or loyalty with the staff. And they go, oh, but I'm using this just as much with my spouse or with my children. And I go, yeah, funny about that, because at the end of the day, relationships are the foundation of everything we do. It's like, I work with coaches and I look at the coaches as being, say, the concrete slab that goes on the ground. But if you put a concrete slab on the ground, you put a building on top of it, that concrete slab will sooner or later shift because of moisture in the earth and things like that. So you've got to put deep footings down. Well, that's your relationships. So what I do is I help people to build those stronger relationships, then put their services on put the concrete slab if they're coaches, and then everybody else put their services on that and build the building. So when people ask me, what do I bring to the table? I just bring the damn table. Everybody puts their stuff together. That's what relationships are.
I know. And, this is why I love talking to you, because we're all about the human to human relationship. This is what this whole thing is about. And the fact that when you collaborate with people who have similar values, who are in alignment, you just get some really cool stuff. Now, I just want to double check what other questions. There's a question here about, I think you've covered a little bit, but we can look at it a little bit more. But what makes it different? Like you've mentioned Myers-Briggs, you mentioned DISC, like I've done e-DISC myself. How's it different? Like as in you said before about, can I just to make sure I've got it right, is it, no, you tell me actually.
God, I love you. All the psychometric profiling, you've either got to, like with the extended DISC, you either observe somebody over a period of time or you ask questions. Now, I was working with, as I said before, a company that were teaching currency trading, and none of their students made any money. And the reason that I then started profiling people in there was to find that out. We asked them questions, but then when we started training them, and especially when they put their money on the table after they finished their course, they were starting to lose money again. And I thought, then they weren't acting the way they acted when we first started training them. And I asked a couple of people, and they said, oh, we tried to figure out what type of personality that we needed to be a good trader. And I said, well, what did you find out when you put your money on the table? Were you able to keep that facade going, or did you revert back to your own personality? They reverted back to their own. So when you ask people questions, they will try and second guess it. You're restricted by age. The person's got to be able to understand the questions if you're asking them questions. There's gender issues because the interpretation of words that we have as well. Two people can see, we use the word loyalty, both of them will have a different definition of it. But when it comes to your facial features, I can read those in a newborn child. There are certain traits that are passed down from the parents. And as the child gets older and older, more and more of those traits develop stronger. And the nurture traits, traits that we respond to our environment, they become more relevant and more prevalent on the face. So over time, I can read more and more. So I'm not limited by age. I'm not limited by gender or the person's understanding the English language, because as I say, photographs don't talk to you. They're just an image, and I can profile those. And so the other thing is, and people say, oh, but if I observe somebody for a while, well, if you're having a good day or a bad day, do you think that you might observe one other person differently in those two moods of your own? If that's the case, we misjudge them.
You have to.
That's it. But when I'm looking at your face, I'm looking at the dimensions. I'm looking at the ridges and crevices and shapes of the face. So it doesn't matter if I'm happy or sad. Say, for instance, if I was looking at, numbers like 3 divided by 4. I'm going to get 0.75 or 75%, whichever way I want to interpret, still exactly the same reading.
Got
And
it.
so I can be happy or I can be sad doing that. So it's the same thing with a face. I'll always be able to read the person as, excuse me, as they are, regardless of how I'm feeling on the day. So it takes out all those issues: age, gender, education, emotions. So when I look at the other person's emotions, then I'm looking at the micro-expressions and bodies. But the body language. But by then, I've already got their personality. And I'm then looking for incongruencies, variations to that in their behaviour.
Like, I'm just, as you're talking, I'm just seeing the value. Like, if I was a coach, or if I mean, as you say, it's really for anybody in business. But, I mean, even if you have a modality, so to speak, adding this to it would have to be with gold. It just
exactly. So
add that on.
If you're advertising a job online, you might have 1,000 people apply for that job. Well, you're not going to be able to sit down and face profile all of them. You'll never get to the end of it. So the online assessments, the questionnaires that you ask, all that psychometric profiling, absolutely valid. But because people will try and second guess, you may lose a couple of good people in the process as well. And you'll get a few bad ones coming through, but you'll have a cross section. It's when you interview them, then you add my skills to that, and now you get confirmation that you have got the right person. Like, I never throw out any other modality. I never say that one is better than another. My background has been, I've been a massage therapist. I've worked with aromatherapies. I've worked with colour therapies and sound therapies. I'm a Reiki master as well. So all those different modalities, and I use whatever's needed with the client. So I focus on the person, work out what they need, and then I apply all those different modalities in the order that I think that suits that person the best. So you never throw out your modality. You always look at, well, how else can I enhance that? How can I grow that? As I said, most important thing you'll ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know everything.
Oh, that's so cool.
Keep adding to it.
Now, just before we went live, I said to you, I've offered my face as an experiment. Oh my God. Anyway, I did say, look, in the I don't even know what to say, but if you can you just quickly run me through what you would look at if you were not, I'm not making this about me. I'm not. What I'm wanting you to do is, if you can you demonstrate
Well,
this?
you're a model that, people can see you. You're on screen at the moment, and people then relate to what I'm talking about. So I always look at, there's about 68 traits in the face and in the body that I look at. But when anyone walks past me in the street, the first thing I do is look out for what stands out the most. And if I'm going to meet them, one of the things I'll look at is one trait in particular, and that's in the height of the eyebrows. So if everybody's looking at the screen and you're looking at your own monitor there, you've got the height of the iris, the coloured section of your eye, the part you can see that's open in the eye there. And then you look, when you're looking straight ahead, is the gap above the eyelash and below the eyebrow. Now, quite often, a lot of women and even some men, they will pluck and reshape their eyebrows. So what I'm looking for is if they're a large gap or a small gap. Someone who's got a large gap, and think about it with fear and surprise, the eyebrows go up and there's a bigger gap. That person pulls back and we pull back from them as well. It's a less friendly situation. Well, it's the same thing that when we see the higher set eyebrows, we see that person as being less friendly. It's not that they're less friendly, it's that they are more discerning. They like to check out who's safe to be around, who's not safe to be around.
So on me, what would that be?
Yeah. Well, with yours, when you look straight ahead and just leave your, without pulling the expressions, you'll see that everybody that bronze has that little slightly larger gap above the eyelash and below the eyebrow. So without asking you whether you pluck your eyebrows or not, because it's only just slightly different.
I've got nothing to hide. This is all that's left. I just have them shaped. Post-chemotherapy, it is different than pre-chemotherapy, but their eyebrows, so hey, I'm happy.
That's it. So what I'm looking for mainly, if they're really high or very low set, like mine are very close to my eyes. Like think of George Clooney. He's all right on his eyes themselves. So us with the short, the low set eyebrows, We're friendly with everybody. There's an upside and a downside of every trait. The upside is we're friendly with everybody. The downside is we're friendly with everybody, including the wrong people, like the con artists. We don't see them coming.
Oh, really?
No, the shades are down. But somebody who's got the larger gap, they are more likely to be discerning. They'll check out who's safe to be around or not. Once you've worked that out, you're as friendly as anybody else.
Got it.
But in that instant, you're going to be working out very quickly who's safe to be around or not. So if I walk into a room and there are two people standing close together and they've both got high set eyebrows, I know they know each other and I know they trust each other before I even walk over to them. And if I'm looking around the room and want to know who is trustworthy, well, the fact that these two trust each other, then they must be trustworthy. And because they've got the high set eyebrows, I guarantee they know in the room who's trustworthy, who you can trust and who you can't trust. So if I'm going to get into a conversation, there's a good chance I'm going to go and chat with them. But when I walk up to them, I'm not going to walk straight up to them and be that close to them, because affable people walk up very closely. Discerning people like to stand back. So I'm going to walk up. They don't even know me yet. I'll introduce myself. I'll stand back, offer my hand, etc. And I'll know that whether I've built rapport with them, because after a while, they'll actually start to come closer. Their body language will be more open again as well. If there's noise in the room and I lower my voice and they step in, then I know two things. They're interested in what I'm saying and they trust me.
I was going to say, yeah, and the trust is being built.
That's it. So this is why I pull all these modalities together into the one process.
Yep.
But
So
I also know you've got a dry wit as well. You know, this is in the area down here, the long area underneath the nose to the top of the lip.
Yeah.
You're adventurous, which is the cheekbones.
I'm a what?
The
What was
high
that?
cheekbones, being adventurous. So I like to try new things that others haven't done. Travel, love to travel.
Yep, I do.
It's when I look at you as well, because of I look for that fold of skin, just where the eyelash is. There's a fold of skin in a lot of people. Yours is fairly close to it. So I know that you analyze things to make sure you've got all the information before you make a decision. But once you've got the decision, got the information, you've made that decision, it's given me the best way to do it. Get out of the way and let me get it done. You don't want to waffle on with a whole bunch of options.
No.
So all of this is in your face. I know that there's also good at organising people and events. There's what I call a mechanical appreciation is there. A little bit of dramatic expression, appreciation. The dramatic appreciation, as I said, every trait's got an upside, every trait's got a downside. You'll have a little bit of the dramatic, which means you express yourself well. But the good thing about that is when you're stressed, because you don't have a high level of it, you don't let everybody know that you're stressed out. It's not because someone with a very high level of dramatic appreciation, they come across very expressive, born presenters and everything else. But my God, they do stress with the same fervour. You know, to somebody like me who has aesthetic appreciation, which is how it feels inside, when I get stressed, I withdraw to my cave. That person lets everyone know. And around me, the energy goes up and down. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So for everybody else, it's the same trait, that's fine. But with me...
And where would you see that? Where do you see the dramatic...
dramatic appreciation is actually in the shape of the eyebrow. Mine is flat, as you can see. Yours goes up, but it arcs around, which is more mechanical appreciation. When it goes up at a sharp angle and goes right out past the eyes, it might turn around, but it goes flat, straight out, right past the pupils. That's dramatic appreciation. And think about anybody who's listening to this. If you have one of those traits and your partner has the other trait, I guarantee it would have been exciting when you got together, but over a period of time, you may have thought, oh, my God, they've changed. You know, for the person who's got the aesthetic, the other one's become a drama queen. And to the one who's got the dramatic appreciation, the other one who's, he never tells me what's going on, always withdraws into the cave. Because you want to know the answer, the aesthetic appreciation withdraws because it's too much noise. They need to fix the problem themselves. And all of a sudden, you think there's a problem. So I teach people how to appreciate the high side of their traits, the strength of it, but how to talk to the downside of the trait so they don't have any problems anymore.
Do you know that it's fascinating because, as you said, it's a tool that can be used anywhere. But imagine this coming into HR and recruitment.
Exactly.
And in terms of, like I know that indeed with eDisc you can do groups and you can do teams and all that sort of stuff, but this would be really quick if that manager or that leader had that skill set. And I know you've said to me before, you want to, it's part of leaving a legacy is to leave people with this. Did you develop yourself, or where did it come from?
No, well, Paul Ekman, a psychologist in America, did all the training on the microexpressions back in 1969, because Charles Darwin in 1872 had travelled the world and said, I can't understand anybody but from what they're saying, but I understand their emotions from their behaviours, their expressions. 95 years on, all the anthropologists said that was rubbish. He was talking about nature, and they said, no, that's nurture, that's cultural. Paul Ekman then proved there are 7 expressions which are universal. Doesn't matter if you've been blind from birth, live in a capital city, live in a village. Anger, contempt, disgust, happiness, sadness, fear, and surprise. Well, if you feel any one of those emotions, you will have that expression on your face. What causes you to have the emotion is cultural, but the expression itself is nature. It's hardwired into everyone on the planet. And so that's where that training came from. Body language I've been working with since the 70s. I've got my master's in NLP, so how do you speak to people? And then the facial features, that started there's always been a belief that certain face shapes would be, you could work somebody's personality out from it. It was misjudged earlier on. They used to say that face shapes, certain face would be a criminal. But we know that committing a crime is a matter of choice. That's character, not personality. Two people can look very similar, function and process in the same way, but one's processing on something that helps other people and the other one's ripping everyone off. So one could be a saint, one could be a sinner. That's when you have the other parts of it, the micro-expressions, the body language, to work out their character when you get to meet them. So I then brought together, because Paul did the micro-expressions, I trained with his group, I've trained with other groups that work with the micro-expressions. I found an English lady in America, Naomi Tickle, who taught me the facial features. And what amazed me was that Paul hadn't got his head around the facial features themselves. He said, well, no, it's the expressions, it's the emotions we're looking at. And how could you, because I think all psychologists were still thinking about phrenology, which was particular bumps on the head, you'd be a serial killer and that sort of thing. And so he wouldn't touch that. And then Naomi had no understanding of the micro expressions. And when I started training with her, she'd said, well, don't train with anybody else. And I went, oops, already started with Paul's group. And I then realised that all of these things would work together. So I brought the micro expressions, the facial features, the body language, and the NLP, how to structure it, put it all together and created rapid trait profiling, which has become pretty much universal worldwide, to the point now that we need more people doing it.
And that started with you? That
started with me. And it's not going to finish with me, because my focus is now to create and train my own competition and make sure they're trained to the highest possible level.
I love that, Alan. And I just, I love hearing about this stuff, because guys, what are you, a 30, 40, 50 year overnight success?
Something like that.
Wouldn't it be great like for people who watch this, is to tap into Alan and learn this stuff, because that's how we can shortcut learning the parts that you need to learn. And I just think, as a business owner, as someone in sales, whether you're in corporate, whether you're in your own business like we are, it's so valuable. Especially imagine if this was in like retail or in nursing. My background in nursing, how cool would that be? In terms of being able to, it would be so good to see that. And so that's what I love about your vision, is that's where it's going. So just tell me a couple of last things, just in relation to the article. What's something that could have gone into it but didn't? Like, is there anything you'd like to add to what you've already given us in that article?
There always is. Half the time I can't remember what I've put into that article now. But at the end of it, I'm writing for people all the time. It just comes out. I put it on paper. I've got so many words that I'm allowed to do, so I put it into that, and then somebody else gets a bit more. And by the end of the week, hey, I'm pushing 70. I'm getting close to 70 now. So and I'm a male as well. I can only do one thing at a time. So,
okay. Let me rephrase this question. What would be the one tip that you believe in this space is of most value to our small business owners collective? Like, what's one thing that you'd like to share with them?
Well, the most important thing, and again, I come back to the relationships. If they're the foundation of everything we do, if you don't have a solid foundation, then what you build up, if it's out of 1 degree at the bottom, it's going to be out many degrees at the top as you go up. You know, think about if you left the Earth at 1 degree out going to the moon, you're not going to get to the moon at all. You got to keep correcting, coming back. But if you can set that foundation as solid as you possibly can and make sure that's right, yes, you've got to have your systems, but people have to operate those systems. So everything's going to come back to relationships. So focus on that. And remember too that it's not, when it comes to your staff, I know that 87% of people at the moment, the Gallup research says, are disengaged in their workplace. And I know that recent research that was mentioned to me the other day it's around about a similar number that have not had any personal development training in the business over the last 3 years. So if you're not training your people around how to build relationships, that emotional intelligence, you're just focusing on technical intelligence and skills and other things, then you haven't got your foundation in your business. If people are dissatisfied in the business, we know that, well, if somebody's been bullied, we know their performance drops 70%. Everybody else who observes it, their performance can drop by 40%. And you go, okay, I don't have any bullies in my organisation. But if those people aren't satisfied in their work, if they feel that they're not being looked after, that their job could be on the line, their performance is going to be down by that figure or thereabouts.
When you look at the displacement at the moment, you look at the underemployed, not just the people who have lost their jobs, those who are being displaced, but it's the underemployed, underutilised. I mean, I know here in Port Macquarie that whenever specific kinds of jobs come up, literally hundreds and hundreds of people apply.
That's it. And that's the thing. So it's a case of, you'll hire people on their attitude and you train them for skills. Don't focus on the skills. This is where the face profiling does come in, because the particular features you'll have will tell me how you like to think and process, which will tell me what skills you bring and what tasks you can do within the organisation. And so with that, you can then profile for the people who have got the ability to fit those skills, but work on the attitude that they have, but also your attitude. If you don't look after your staff, they're not going to be happy. If they're not happy, they're not going to be productive. And it's not wrapping them in cotton wool. It's not giving them gifts and high pay and everything else, because we know if you give a blue-collar worker extra money to increase productivity, it will go up to a certain degree until they physically can't perform any faster. You keep giving them money, their performance then drops.
Oh, you see that, if you've worked in corporate, if you've had the pleasure, or in my case, I've done corporate and I've done the nursing profession, people go beyond their best skill set. And, you see it a lot, actually, sadly.
Right. Well, if you treat people the right way, because the idea of a business person was somebody who would hire people who are smarter than he or she was and could do work that they didn't want to do or couldn't do, so that they could go off on holidays and the company would still run in its absence, and not only run, but would also grow. Because the people how do you work on your business if you haven't got people in your business who really want to make sure it grows and flourishes? So it's in the way you treat them. And so it's like in a relationship. How do we know that we're happy in our relationship? Feel that we're loved is that we have a place to belong, that we contribute, that we are valued. Well, treat your staff the same way. You don't have to give them large pay rises. Then they say you train your people so that they can leave, but you treat them in a way so they don't want to leave. They want to stay.
Yeah.
And so build that relationship with them. And you don't have to micromanage them because they're self-motivated. They keep things going. Relationships, that's all comes back to sense.
So how can people find you? What's the best way for people to find you? I mean, clearly when this is posted, we will be putting links to your business page, but where would you like people to find you? Website, LinkedIn, where would you like to go?
Well, they'll be able to find me through my website, which is alanstevens.com.au. So it's as it's spelled on the screen there, .com.au. The other thing too is if they put that address in and a / and the number 7 and the word secrets, there's a free download for them to actually play around with some of those features themselves. They can test them out for themselves.
Well, so, you know what? How about when we go when we post this, put the link in.
Yeah,
I'd love to put that link in for you. So, guys, thank you, Alan.
Yeah,
I just love having. We always have a laugh. It's a great conversation, and I learned something every single time we catch up. And just wanted to say thank you for being one of our writers for the Business Owners Collective, and the feedback has been fantastic. If you haven't got a copy, I'll put the link for that in as well, so you can go get the latest copy. But I'll also send you Alan's. The edition that Alan is in as well, which is wonderful. So thanks, Alan. And I think it's a wrap.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care.